A suspect now identified in the Atlanta shooting death of an 8-year-old girl.
We do believe that that vehicle was targeted as a result of direct gunfire when it crossed that barricade.
Do you know who this man is? Plus, how a bicyclist helped catch a murder suspect. Also, continuing coverage of the death of Elijah McClain, what doctors are now saying about the use of ketamine by first responders.
All right. So we got 500 ketamine?
Yep.
Right now on Law&Crime Special Report, Keeping the Peace. It's Wednesday, July 8th, 2020. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Bob Bianchi. This is Law&Crime Trial Network, Keeping the Peace. It's July 8th, 2020. So we have an update, a suspect of interest in the killing of the 8-year-old girl that was driving in a car with her mom in Atlanta, Georgia. Let's listen to Lieutenant Pete Malachy from the Atlanta Police Department with regard to this update, and maybe you can help.
4th at around 9:45 p.m., Secoriea Turner was the passenger of a 2016 Jeep Cherokee. That vehicle was traveling westbound down University Avenue when it came across a makeshift roadblock that was manned by numerous armed individuals. The driver of that vehicle attempted to go around that roadblock, at which point that vehicle was immediately met by gunfire, resulting in the death of an 8-year-old child. So as you can see, this is one of several individuals who are a person of interest in this case. I'm confident that somebody knows the name of this male. And with a simple phone call, an individual can earn a $20,000 reward being offered through Atlanta Crime Stoppers. In addition, it's the opportunity to do the right thing. Although we have a lot of work to do in this case in identifying the remaining individuals responsible for the death of an 8-year-old child, this is the first step in that process.
Yeah, could the person that helped solve this crime be you? Let's hope that those images, which are pretty clear, will identify the subject. Dr. Cedric Alexander is my guest today. He's been on before. He's got 4 decades in law enforcement experience. I have a listing of things that this man has done in the law enforcement community. It's just honestly too long to explain on so many high-level positions, as well as being an analyst, a legal analyst, and as well as coaching police departments on proper reform and police practices. Doctor, thanks for coming back on the show.
Thank you for having me. Good to be here with you today.
And I always appreciate your reasoned opinion. I want to talk about this case. Police work is dangerous. There are people that are on the street with semi-automatic weapons like this that cause carnage in the community. Now, these police think that this car was targeted. Obviously, an 8-year-old isn't being targeted. But I want you to get into a little bit about what cops have to deal with when they have these kind of weapons and this kind of massive firepower out on the street, and how it affects them psychologically. I mean, they want to go home to their wives and kids, too.
Well, first of all, let me say this. Certainly our hearts and prayers go out to that young victim and their family that I know are still suffering at this very moment that we're having this conversation. But I also want to give kudos to the Atlanta Police Department and their homicide division and the men and women every day to try to find these suspects and persons of interest that are involved in this. This is a horrible, horrible crime. And I tell you, the amount of weapons that are out there on that street at this very moment, police officers have to come in contact with individuals who oftentimes can be highly dangerous, and they have to use a great deal of precaution. It is a tough time, as we well know, in this country, and having this many guns out on the street, and particularly those that are carried by those that oftentimes are illegal owners and are in illegal possessions of these weapons, make it really difficult for law enforcement in communities where people can feel safe. So I would just continue to, and if I could just close here, I would just continue to propose to people in that community, work with your police department. If you know something, please say something about this, because so many people are in pain.
Doc, this interim police chief really, fell into a bad situation, but he has been making it very clear, very forceful. I like the way the guy's temperament is. Maybe I'm wrong. You tell me. He basically said, we believe in peaceful protesting. We will protect those protesters. But we have had a doubling of shootings and homicides in 3 months in Atlanta versus the year before already. And that he says strongly, I will not tolerate lawlessness in this community. Do you think that he is, I believe he is, striking the right message? Protest, reform, transparency, yes. Lawlessness, no.
Well, I believe certainly Chief Rod Bryant is balanced. He know that he has to take a tough approach. And he's also aware that he have to be very sensitive and compassionate as well. Him being in that job, doing the job that he's been asked to do in this interim position is so important. And him taking a very strong stance against those out there who are acting recklessly and are being lawless. He's absolutely right. He's not going to tolerate it, and no one should tolerate it. And people in that community that live in and around those neighborhoods, come forward, say something to your chief, say something to those investigators. You can remain anonymous, but more than anything else, it's great that there's a reward involved in this. But what about just human decency? Or what about if that was your child or someone else that's very close to you? You want somebody to come forward. Please come forward, say something. Somebody know that individual. They know that walk. That's a very unique walk. And they know who that person is. Come forth and say something. Let's get these guys off the street.
Great message, Doc. Hey, listen, all's not bad in Atlanta. In fact, we see a commandeering. I've never seen it before. A police officer pursuing a murder suspect, commandeering a bicycle in order to effectuate a capture. Let's take a look.
Hispanic male on a bike. What color is it here?
Hey, let me borrow your bike, man. Let me borrow your bike. Give me a second.
Let me keep my bag.
Yeah, I got you. Go for it.
Okay.
You just make a left? You went down over.
Just before receipt. 3613 and 578. Any unit out with 3613 with a visual. Okay, unit copy 59 right away at Glen Harrison Park. Glen Harrison Park. Hispanic male on a yellow bike. Glen Harrison Park.
Radio, we got it. We got it. We got it. We got it.
Copy, male in custody. Male in custody. 1807
Hey, Doc, you gotta love that. Now, that wasn't the whole clip. A lot of the clip was the police officer dodging in and out of traffic, actually putting his own life at risk in order to pursue this individual. And while riding the bike, he's actually calling in coordinates so that the police units can get ahead and capture this individual. Great story for the police, and typical, I think, mostly of the great work that they do, putting their lives at risk in order to get a murder suspect. And like you said, nobody benefits more than that, not only bringing justice for the murder, but the family of the person that was murdered. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, that image certainly is something right out of a movie, isn't it? And that's what I call great police and community working together to combat crime. It's something to look at, but it just tells you of the courage and the commitment that men and women in Atlanta Police Department have, and the citizens. Clearly, here, take my bike, do what you got to do, officer. And I just love it every time that I see it. It's unfortunate. It had to involve a crime, but when police and community are working together, it's just amazing the kind of things that can be accomplished, even in something like this.
I love very calmly, hey, let me borrow your bike, brother. The guy willingly gives it up. But you're right about that community involvement. And we're following another thing. In New York City, as you may know, $1 billion has been cut from the budget, and there are concerns both by the community as well as the police department that some of those went towards educational programs and mentorship programs and outreach programs for populations that were at risk, especially in Rockaway Beach, which has so far, a mentorship program reached 100 boys, and apparently by all accounts been very successful, and those young men indicating that it actually saved their lives and put them on a better course. Let's listen to Sergeant Kai Bowen speak about this.
Secoriea Coach program is a program that the city has been sorely lacking for a very long time. Relations with the community and police are at an all-time low, but programs like this can start to tip the scales back in our favor. We have 100 boys who all come attached with parents and family members, so we're touching about 300 people with genuine, good-hearted energy and intent towards making their lives better. We've been doing this program since 2018. In partnership with the Department of Education, we offer mentoring to these young boys, tutoring, and also an intense focus on making them productive members of society.
All right, we had this one gentleman. He wasn't going to school because he couldn't see, and even when he was playing football with us, he couldn't produce. He couldn't catch the ball and knock it out. So we put him aside. We wondered, like, what's going on? And he explained how, you know, his vision is not good, and so we wound up taking him to the eye doctor. And they did an eye exam, and kind of found out he needed glasses. So the whole unit came together, chipped in some money, and was able to buy that kid glasses. He started playing better football, and he started reading better in the classroom. So the little things like that make a world of difference.
Hey, Doc, you know, I know that you're the president of Noble, and we have some mutual friends here in Jersey with Matt and Giles. They would be the first to tell you that one of the first thing I did as prosecutor was start a very aggressive community affairs outreach where law enforcement officers went out, especially in minority communities, not only for programs like this, but also to cultivate programs to get young minorities involved in wanting to be police officers or prosecutors and having programs. They were invaluable, so that when there were things that happened in the community where we were being questioned, whether it be a law enforcement thing or shooting of a police officer, that relationship was key when we would go to those community leaders who already knew us beforehand and knew where our heart was with regard to allowing us the time to be able to do the job we wanted that we should do, and that we were transparent with them. Can you give me an idea? I will tell you this. There are others on the law enforcement side that refer to my community affairs unit as the Lollipop Club. There was a cultural thing where some believed it was not an effective law enforcement tool. By the way, let me add, we also got a lot of great intelligence that led to very significant arrests with regard to gangs, drugs, and guns. What are your thoughts about that divide that exists with regard to these things?
Well, first of all, we're moving into and have been moving into a new era of policing for a number of years, and we're going to continue to move in that direction. And reform comes in a lot of different ways. And reform is, as you just heard those two officers demonstrate in that clip there, are men and women who have committed themselves to do something different, not just enforce the laws, but get engaged in community activities that involve young people, that give them a sense of direction, a sense of hope, and to help them to build some confidence in themselves. And that's going to take them a long way in life. And guess what? Those are young people that I don't have to engage with on the street. That's the whole idea around funding, is moving some funding into areas in which we can do some other things that may prove beneficial in lowering in our calls for service and less police officer engagement that sometimes can turn conflictual, but allow our police officers to be out on the street and do what policing was designed to do, and that's prevention. And all in that is well when it comes to reducing or redirecting funding. But I think the most important thing people are concerned about, we certainly don't want to lose any policing, and we don't want to lose any of our resources. Can we arrange things around that we can be far more creative and reimagine some new ideas in policing? Absolutely. And I think we have young people who are coming into policing today with new ideas, and that's what we need. New ideas, new energy, and a different way of seeing the world.
You know, Doc, just real quick, one of the things that I found was problematic when I was prosecutor was trying to find people who wanted to enter into careers in law enforcement, went to the traditional groups, if you will. It's one of the reasons we worked with Noble and the Urban League and many other places to have these programs in place where we could actually cultivate people. We would have a career in law enforcement day where all various individuals in law enforcement across the spectrum, federal, state, and local would come in and lecture. It was a course they were given. From there, we actually hired a lot of those young folks in the prosecutor's office to be interns. And from interns, they wound up being able to have something on their resume to put on to become an officer or go to law school or what have you. What do you think about that? Good idea?
No, it's a great idea. Absolutely great idea, because what you began there is a pipeline of young men and women who may have ideas about going into law enforcement, and it creates a pipeline for the future, and particularly for people of color, which we still have a challenging time trying to recruit across many cities in this country. But in addition to that, and and probably one of the good unintended consequences to it, even if they do not choose to go into law enforcement, they learn how to be good citizens. They learn how to be good role models, and they have confidence that had been built up in them by those in which they look up to as mentors.
Well stated, Doctor. Okay, we got to take a quick break. We got some more interesting stuff, especially with regard to Elijah McClain coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back to Keeping the Peace. Elijah McClain developments. These are very important developments. Now, we know the Elijah McClain case. This is where in Aurora, Colorado, he came to the police attention. There was a struggle at a certain point in time. You see a picture of him there. By accounts, this is a gentle, sweet person that hasn't had any kind of criminal past or what have you. But during the course of the incident, and I always found this to be strange, both as a former EMT and, I guess you can do these things, I don't know. But he was given a dose of ketamine. And let's not forget that the DA has not charged any of the officers with respect to any illegal conduct with regard to Elijah McClain. My spidey sense said, as a former homicide prosecutor, it's because the autopsy report can't clearly demonstrate cause and manner of death beyond a reasonable doubt, which is an essential element to the basics of any murder prosecution. Well, what do we find out now? Again, I thought it was odd that they were given this ketamine, but apparently they gave him 500 milligrams of ketamine. Let me put this into perspective for you. The anesthesiologist and the greater medical community, as well as the literature, indicate for somebody that's about 140 pounds, he should have half of that dose of ketamine. Rather, he was given ketamine that would be consistent with an individual who was 220 to 250 pounds, twice the dosage. And the other thing is, when you give a person this kind of drug, because it's a significantly serious drug, you have to watch and monitor their heart and their respiration, which was not done here. Now, this drug was administered by medical personnel while the cops were attempting to do what they were doing. Let's take a listen.
Drive your knuckles right there. You don't have to put pressure until he moves. All right?
So we got 500 to ketamine?
Yep.
Awesome, thank you.
Expiration 5/20/20.
Okay. All right.
Just drive it right behind his ear if he fights, all right?
We'll give that a minute or two, see if that works. And once it is, we'll go ahead. If you guys are okay with it, we'll uncuff him. We'll go up with the right arm, down with the left, and we'll just restrain everything. We'll give that a minute or two.
All right. Hey, Woodyard, Rosie, here in a minute, once this medicine kicks in, we're going to uncuff him, put him on the bed, and then we're going to restrain him, soft point him to the bed.
All right, no, you're okay. I got it.
You guys have any extra gloves on you?
My back pouch right here, dude.
Yes, right here for you.
Okay.
They're extra large, just so everybody can fit them. But
Just to fill you in, who was contacted by walking down the street wearing like a wrestling mask or something like that. So all these guys to get him down, and he's an injury to a quick no pain compliance. They were completely it's limited. He's still fighting. He's still fighting when we got here. He's super diabetic. He's back cardiac. So I was excited to learn, and that's why we gave him a 5 of ketamine. We had no idea as far as medical history, that's allergy. So we're going to give him maybe another minute, but it looks like it's starting to kick in.
Yeah, he's snoring.
That's ready. We'll go ahead and uncuff and take him up to you. Is he in custody or?
I'm
sure he will be.
I'm sure he will be, man.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Okay, as you saw there, and Doc, this is just unbelievable to me that the ME, who can't really come to a conclusion as to the cause and manner of death, said in the report that it was a therapeutic level of ketamine that was given. Yeah, we now know it was therapeutic if you're given it to a guy like me. that may be in that 220 to 250 pound range, but not for somebody who was 140 pounds. And what I don't understand for the life of me, and I'm not a medic, and I have never as an EMT seen these kind of heavy sedatives given to somebody. He didn't even seem to be moving at the time that this was given to him. So it's bad enough he got twice the dose of something that was fatal, probably to some extent with regard to his life. But why would you imagine they would do that when he was handcuffed and he was passive?
I can't even find words for it. I'm looking for the excited delirium that he say he was in. I'm a psychologist, and I don't see it, and I think the common layperson don't see it. He was laying there silently, but here's a kid that weighs what, 120, 140 pounds, and they shoot that amount of dosage in him. And the question is, it's not even the amount of dosage, but it appears from where we are, and I don't want to Monday morning quarterback this thing, but the appearance that we're seeing from the video here, he was just laying there, either unconscious or was just totally being controlled. I mean, I don't even see the necessity for the, or I can't even make out what's this excited delirium. Now, of course, if we go back to the video, when they stopped him, they wrestled him to the ground, was that excited delirium? Or was that just someone who did not want to be arrested? There's a whole lot of questions here need to be answered. And I think there need to be a whole lot of training that may need to be revisited as well, too, both from the police side and also from the medical EMT side.
Yeah, on the medical EMT side, it didn't seem like anything that was going on here was out of the ordinary for them.
No.
They were talking about it casually, and here's how much we're going to give. And he, in my mind, again, I don't want a Monday morning quarterback as well, but he wasn't seem to be thrashing around or anything of that nature. And we all know when you inject any kind of medication into a person, you don't know if they're on other medication, whether they're on other substances. The medical interaction of those drugs can be a problem as well. So I want to really appreciate your time here. Unfortunately, our time has come to an end. I will be back with more Keeping the Peace tomorrow. You be well.